Welcome to Finding Ourself, a podcast about the power of presence, connection, and the transformation that is only possible through touch. So if you're curious about human connection, somatic healing, or what it really means to belong, you're in the right place. Let's find ourselves together. Hello, welcome to another episode of Finding Ourself, a Cuddlist podcast where myself, Keely, the CEO and co-owner of Cuddlist, and Michelle talk to you about everything in the industry, about cuddling, about love, about touch, about all the ways that this kind of work can impact your life and all the associations with it. And here's my co-host, Michelle Renee.
Hi, everybody. I am also a co-owner with Keely, and I'm the director of training. And we've known each other forever. It feels like I feel so lucky that we now are co-owners of or stewards of this company.
I like that adjustment.
Yeah, I really feel like this work in general has been such a gift to me, but I will say that working with you in the ownership capacity has been maybe one of my favorite gifts from this. I've had lots of them, but I could not ask for a better business partner.
Well, I feel the same. You're gonna make me cry, so stop it.
I think we can cry today if it. And we're going to talk about our origin stories today. What brought us into this work.
Yeah, we realized that we've had a couple episodes released and then we're in this process, right? But if someone hasn't ever heard of Cuddlist or of us, they might be catching up. So here's our lore, here's our backstory, here's the origin of not only Cuddlist as a company, but of Michelle and myself.
I feel like if we went in chronological order, Keely would start because Keely has a lot of the original Cuddlist happenings.
I do.
Before I came into the picture. So maybe we start with you.
Yeah. Is it best to start with Cuddlist's, the broad Cuddlist origin story, or my personal?
Maybe you could do the Cuddlist origin story first, and then we'll talk about how we both came into it.
I love it. So it is 2014, 2013, Chicago, setting the scene. And someone by the name of Madeline Guinazzo is hosting what's called Cuddle Parties. Now, Cuddle Party in 2010 was originated and founded by two incredible folks, Reed Mihalko and Marcia Paczynski. They were fresh out of the college. They were working on relationship. They were coaches and had studied relationships, communication, and dynamics, human dynamics. So they created this event called Cuddle Party. I won't go in too deep into it, but it was about it was a way to, I hate this word, but sneakily teach everyone boundaries and consent, but in a way that was appealing. And that originated in New York, but Madeline had run across Marcia and run across these parties and became a facilitator and was like, I love this. I love this work. It matched with Madeline's background. Madeline did a lot of professional patient work, so would go to different hospitals and teach medical students how to give exams that were honoring of people's autonomy, even though you have to touch people's bodies, honoring them, really great with consent. And so it's all in this work about boundaries, consent. Also, Betty Martin was really influential in a lot of Betty Martin has Wheel of Consent education, which is a deep dive in consent theory. And so all of this stuff was happening. Marcia was making Cuddle Party blow up along with Reed, and it was spreading this. It was right pre Me Too movement, right. So this zeitgeist of the we need comprehensive consent education was just about ready to burst, and in this and in learning about these types of consent concepts and boundaries, practices and exercises to teach people these communication tools. Madeline started realizing, oh man, this is really great to apply in one-on-one scenarios, not just groups, because these were group facilitated workshops. This was, and to group facilitate something is a pretty different beast than one-on-one client work. It takes a lot of different skill set. And so there was one available outlet online to talk about or do this work. It was created at the time, and it's debunked now, so I don't feel bad about talking about it. There was a website called Snuggle Buddies. No longer exists, thank goodness, because Snuggle Buddies had also had an offshoot that was for foot fetish work, and it was just all muddled. It was not clear. And through seeing one-on-one clients there, Madeline realized just how needed it was, that if people were going to do this kind of work in a one-on-one setting, there had to be different education, there had to be resources. And so she spent time developing what that could look like. What does it look like when you take these concepts that were being pioneered by several people in the zeitgeist and apply it to one-on-one work, along with what also was burgeoning at the time, and just the seed of it was starting to grow, of somatic work, really deep somatic. This is when somatic experiencing was getting traction, which is a different modality. It's when, if you look back, Stephen Porges was starting to publish his books and works on polyvagal theory. So how is the body interacting with our ability to connect with folks and promote our mental health? And so it was really kind of this wonderful flash pan of all of the right pieces in all the right places. And Marcia was running. um, I found one of Madeline's events, and I attended and loved this. I was hooked from moment one. This is 2013, and Marcia was doing a facilitator training here in Chicago and looking for a venue, and I offered up my house. I said I would love to host, because I got to go to the event for free, and held the space and was the host for it. And so Madeline assisted Marcia. It was in my space. And lo and behold, a person by the name of Adam Lippin out of New York attended, flew in so he could attend this facilitator's workshop, because Marcia was teaching other people how to run these events and also how to like deep dive into this work and be really excellent facilitators for all different kinds of group events. It was really wonderful. It was called Foundations of Facilitation. Excellent workshop. And in my living room, as I'm looking at it right now, sitting right across from me, right in front of the fireplace, Adam and Madeline started chatting and decided, and Adam had run a series of businesses in different areas, mostly a wing. He had a series of
Atomic
wings,
wings.
atomic wings. He had a chain of wing stores, and was now in his life, in that phase of his entrepreneurial um, journey, wanted to get more into the personal health and personal growth, because that's where his life was going. He wanted to, as opposed to being in other commercial fields, he really felt drawn to yoga. He felt drawn to self-development and personal health. And so as they chatted, Madeline and Adam chatted, Madeline was like, well, there's this one website and it's kind of terrible, and I really think that we could do much better. I really think that if something existed to train people to do this well, it would be the next thing. It would take off. And that really appealed to Adam. And so after a couple of months of chatting, and after really developing a business plan about it and getting a few small investors, they, in 2015, at the end of 2015, launched Cuddlist. And it was one of the first ever, I think the same year, in fact, simultaneously, without chatting with each other, Jean Franzblau in Los Angeles was creating Cuddle Sanctuary. So it really was just the zeitgeist of the time. These things were independently happening because there was such a need in our culture, and there was the beginnings of conversation around it, and people knew that this was a thing that people needed. So I think the same year they both launched completely independently, didn't know each other, and then the relationship then formed, and it was just a lot of mutual love and respect. But that's how Cuddlist started. It was born out of the need we saw the need for the clients were there. The clients were hungry and wanting this work. And Madeline was one of the people to synthesize the existing consent and boundaries information that was out there, that was mainly geared towards groups and put it in an individual modality in a practitioner space. And that is where Cuddlist was born. So from there, I was so excited to be in at that time, the training consisted of Madeline getting a bunch of people together in our friend Anya's living room and doing like a 2-day workshop, or the very first one I think was a full evening. It was just one evening of going through all these things that she'd written down and all these notes, and she was kind of beta testing it on us, right? And like then and we were all eating it up like, yeah, this is great, but we're asking a ton of questions because it wasn't fully fleshed out yet. But that was the first training, and then it became a 2-day thing. And then she took all of that after doing several of them. I imagine it was like 5 or 6 of those. She took all that information and all the feedback she got from the live sessions and from people's questions, and also she continued to work, and so continued to refine some of this, put it all in an online educational platform. And that's how it stayed for quite some time, for several years, until I came into the picture as not just a enthusiastic supporter, but as an owner. But during this time, give us your timeline while all of this was happening, from about 2015, 2013,
Yeah.
that era.
I come into the picture, well, I come into Cuddlist picture in 15, but in 2014, my marriage was ending. I got married really young, recreated my parents' relationship. And I think how that plays over to what I needed from Cuddlist was my mother never modeled bodily autonomy. Not to mention, we were all pretty much, I think, parented under the scope of like, do as I say, not as I do. We don't hear no from our children. You know what I mean? Like, you're just to do as you're told. But add to that, my mother, and it's such a weird story to tell because it's like, why would kids know this? But we know things, right? We're in the soup. The running joke in my household was that my mother would purposely put a lot of clothes on before bed, layers of clothes. And the other joke is that she would not shave her legs to try to protect herself from our father. Like, keep him away. And so it's not a huge surprise that I ended up in a relationship with a man that was very much like my father, and controlling. And we talk about this in imago therapy, is like, you will seek out people to finish unfinished business, right? So we marry our parents. My first husband was my father. We totally recreated my parents' relationship. The most abusive part of that relationship was the fact that I was participating in coercive sex. Right? I was not having sex because I wanted to have sex. I was having sex because the ramifications of not having sex were too much for me to deal with. Right? It wasn't like you're not forced to do something in the way that we think about traditionally in like sexual assault, but it's this wearing you down piece. It's I got to the point that I would say that I felt like my job in the family, I was a stay-at-home mom, I wasn't bringing money in, and I didn't have a sense of understanding that I have inherent value just for being a human being. And my value was in keeping peace in my house. And so it was easier to do it than to deal with the bitchy, whiny, just miserable human being on the other side. That was my husband if I didn't. And as much as I wanted out of that relationship, and I knew that if I ever withheld, that he at least had threatened to leave me, I still couldn't do it. I couldn't withhold. And I don't know what would have been on the other side. So thankfully the marriage ended on its own. I didn't leave. I get the whole like, oh, I'm so glad that you got yourself out. That's not how it happened. I did not rescue myself. I felt like somebody needed to rescue me. I never considered that I could do it for myself. Thankfully, he decided that it was time for the marriage to end. And while I felt incredibly abandoned, there was that part of me that knew this was the best thing that could happen for me, because I had tried to get out. I'd asked to get out. I hadn't tried. I'd asked to get out of the marriage many, many times over the 18 years. So, in getting out of the marriage, I had to figure out what I wanted to do as a job. Like, I had a little bit of accounting education. We had a business, and I got as much education as I needed to manage our books. But that was really all I had. And that was the scariest part of the marriage ending, was like figuring out how I was ever going to support myself. I found that I was really drawn to sex education. I won't go into the torrid details of exactly what that looked like. But I knew I wanted to do something in sex education. I ended up at Reed Mahalko from Cuddle Party, was doing Sex Geek Summer Camp, which was a camp for people in sex education to learn how to have a YouTube channel and identify your ideal client avatar. And like it was workshops during the day, and then at night they would have different events. And one of those events was a cuddle party. So my first cuddle party was at Sex Geek Summer Camp. We left camp. As campers, we stayed in touch and community, and we were in a conversation one day about professional cuddling. And I was like, oh, I could do this. Like, I was a mom. I cuddled a bit with my kids when they were younger. I wouldn't call myself an incredibly cuddly person, but if you go back on my Facebook, there was a lot of times when I was single post-divorce that I kept wanting cuddles, saying I should charge for this. In retrospect, I was utilizing a lot of casual sex to get that affection need met. And at that time, that's where Madeline was offering the one night class. And you had to be in either Chicago or New York, and she would Skype when Skype was still around. I think it's actually fully debunked now. And because I lived in West Michigan, it was only a couple hours to drive, and I had nothing to lose. They were trying to really stock the website with people, so there was no cost to it at that time. It was really the very, very beginning of Cuddlist. And I think I was the first person on the site outside of those two metro areas. I think. Yeah. It was December 1st, 2015. I knocked on Madeline's door. I was the only person there for Chicago. And it was a room full of people that Adam had in New York over Skype. And it's wild when I look back at that's what a certified cuddler was. Like, Cuddlist, it was that and a commitment to attend 6 cuddle parties in 6 months or something like that. And if you were in New York and Chicago, that was doable. There were cuddle parties happening regularly, robust community of cuddle parties. I came into Chicago for, I think I might have done 2 cuddle parties in Chicago before I just decided, screw it, I'm just going to take the facilitation training for cuddle party to kind of fulfill that requirement. And so that's how it all got started. I didn't think it was going to be the thing I would still be doing now. I quickly learned that I was offering hands-on sex education. It was exactly what I wanted to do. It's the communication, the consent, the boundaries, the part that I needed in my own sexual relationship with myself and with others. That was the missing piece of my development. My mother did not model that to me. So my healing directly impacted by the fact that I found Cuddlist.
Same.
Yeah.
Well, same cuddle party and then cuddlist.
Yes, cuddle party was, if I hadn't done, who knows what would have happened, but I know for myself, getting launched into doing the cuddlist work was really slow. And we talk about that on another episode where we talked about the word cuddle. I was a bit in the cuddle closet, but a lot of it was self confidence that I was lacking. And because part of being a cuddle party facilitator is you have to have so many review parties.
Mm-hmm.
And I did the first review party, and you had to get feedback from a certain number of people in order for it to qualify.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the feedback that I did a good job and that I could hold space for people. And one of the feedbacks I got that I will always remember was somebody saying, "Wow, I'm going to leave here. And now when I get a match on like a dating site, I'm not going to say yes out of obligation.
Mm.
I don't have to say yes to these dates."
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, this is really going to pay things forward.
Mm-hmm.
And it was after that that I was able to, that I put myself more on the market as a one-on-one cuddlist. Madeline sent me my first client and kind of broke the seal, right? And then I started to market myself and come out because of hearing that I could hold space.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I knew, but hearing your story, it always kind of baffles me how much resonates. Different but same. Um, I had moved to Chicago and was really alone. I grew up in Indiana. I grew up, good Midwestern girl, uh, Catholic, all these interesting tropes, and people pleaser, extreme people pleaser. And in being so alone in Chicago and so far away, like I was really happy to be here. I loved the place. Indiana never felt like a good fit, but I didn't have any of the skills to develop really healthy relationships, and was in a really abusive relationship as well. I was coercive sex was a part of it, but also there was insidious like physical abuse that never looked directly like hitting, but was give me a massage. Oh, I'm kind of tired right now. Okay, well I'll give you one first, and then trying to hurt me as much as he could so that I would say I'm done. And then, well, I gave you a massage. Now you owe me one. And so there was a lot of different things like that going on. And my first cuddle party that I ever attended, it took a lot to get me there. It took months to get me there, actually. But I remember being in the welcome circle. Madeline's running it, and one of the first rule is, it's a platonic space. You're close to stay on. The second one is you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do ever, and that hit me like a rock in my stomach. You don't have to do anything that you don't want to do ever. And then the third rule is if you're a yes, say yes. If you're a no, say no. And we practiced, and this is what completely, in the best way, destabilized me. We had to practice. You turn to someone, they said, "May I kiss you?" And you have to say no. And then they say, "Thank you for taking care of yourself." And that 30-second interaction cracked my egg so open, because I had been so conditioned in that relationship and in other places in my life where, one, you don't say no. You come up with an excuse. You hide the fact that you're saying it. You do anything but saying no, because saying no is rude. Saying no is bad. You can't say no to someone. You have to say, "Oh, well, I'll try," or "Maybe if I do this," or you can't say no to someone. And then to have the response be "Thank you." Oh God, I didn't know how to take that. And then the thing that sent me over the edge, and I was just bawling. I was absolute, just streaming, tears down my face, was tears and laughter are welcome. This is a safe space for tears as well as laughter. You can be essentially just this, your emotions are not a burden to other people. We actually care what you really feel. and not how we think you're supposed to feel. And oh, I cried for probably 2 full hours. Probably. And the other part of that was what had just been said was immediately reinforced with Madeline looking at me, making eye contact with me as I'm like, I'm not vocal, I'm just silently tears streaming. And um she goes, like, you okay? It was very clear in that moment. And I go, you shook my head yes. She goes, okay. And then part of the instruction in the opening so in the welcome circle is come get me if you need anything. And so she reminded me, like, if you need anything, I'm here. But it wasn't like a go to the bathroom, like take care of yourself, don't come out until you can present yourself in
Put
public.
yourself together. Get
Put
yourself
yourself
together.
together. Mm-hmm. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'd always been taught. No shade to my parents. My parents are did such a wonderful job with me in terms of what they were handed, just improved. And this is also not a episode on my personal trauma history. You know what I mean? But with my parents, but it was also just the world that they were living in, right? Midwest, you know, just the whole thing. And that, like you said, the having what you actually being valued in that way, not for what you were doing for others, not for how much you were tolerating for others, but for you.
You're not earning it.
Oh God. Oh, that hits even now. Feeling like you have to earn love, that it's not inherent, or earn worth. I have to earn my worth. Um, that was just revolutionary. And the fact that that to bring that into individual spaces is what Cuddlist was all built on from the ground up. What you say about it being the one um, evening of
Mm-hmm.
training and over Skype and whatnot, gosh, how far it's come.
Mm-hmm. My takeaway, the one
Mm-hmm.
thing I remember from that night, Michelle, you have to charge for it because that tells you how long the container is, when it starts, and when it stops. I can't remember anything else from that night because back then I feel like I was hearing a lot of people, especially in Cuddle Party, I don't want to have to charge for this. This should be free. And of course, as practitioners, we hear that from our clients often of like, why do I have to pay for this? And we can go, that's probably a whole other episode we could do, right? But this is such a new concept for me. I was not coming into this work with other modalities under my belt. I hadn't done anything like this, and hearing you have to charge for it because it tells you when you start and stop. I could see without having that a cuddle session just going on and on and on. Right now it's
Mm-hmm.
like I don't feel bad that there's a timer that goes off.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is I think I know that my job there, as Madeline used to say, they don't pay us for the touch, they pay us for our boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like I am modeling all the different ways that I honor my relationship to myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Which is
See,
not
people.
what I did growing up, and it's not what I did in my first marriage.
No, no, yeah. So people can see, kind of hearing this origin about like why the people who are still in Cuddlist kind of are so enthusiastic, so really invested, really invested. Many of us have similar stories in some way to this, where it absolutely changed our whole lives. In some ways, it helped our survival. I think for me, I do think it saved my life. I don't know what would have happened.
I would have kept repeating the patterns.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think my kids would be in a very different place. Like
Oh, yeah.
we talk about ripples
Mm-hmm.
and impacts, and I love to use the a quote from the book Untamed from Glennon Doyle where she talks about liberation is never one direction.
Mm. Mm.
How much I'm learning from my clients, how much they're learning from me, how much my kids are learning from me. And like I just again, the repeating of patterns, I would have ended up with the same relationship I had with my parents with my children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not the case. I have a very different relationship with my kids.
Mm-hmm. It's touched my whole life in my family. I've all the tools and the skills and the communication that I use. I At first it was a big upset the apple cart in my family because I wasn't following all the same roles and protocols as we always followed the expected behaviors, but they've in recent years said, like, thank you so much for doing that, or this thing that you did, or this thing that you taught us, or this. And I internally know that it came directly from that, right? Like, really changed, and we do this now, and it's so much healthier. And so it's had ripples in my family, it's had ripples in my personal. I have wonderful relationships now, and it's so different. And it's interesting to see how Cuddlist has evolved. Like, that was the very basic origin, but even with that, you can see how there could be some challenges and some pitfalls, and it's very new. And so I love that it was able to grow and evolve in the way that it did. The Madeline did revise the online training and add to it a little bit over the years, including a DEI section, which one of the biggest things that I think is often lacking out there in the world of cuddle therapy education is the interplay of power dynamics, how power really impacts people's ability to consent. And we didn't have that a lot of places. We didn't have that originally in Cuddle Party. Like, it was packed. It was really good information, but there's things like that as we've gone on over the past 10 years, there's so much more to learn. And then in 2021, 22, the founders brought me on as a director of development, and then we realized pretty quickly that they had been working pretty tirelessly for all those years, and that creating a startup in a brand new, unheard of industry, creating a name for yourself, that's taxing. So they were kind of ready to retire. They were ready to shift their lives into either full retirement or other projects or things like that. And so that's where I was able to purchase Cuddlist and really take all of the 10 years of education and completely revamp the training to be what it is now. And then very shortly after, I joined officially. Then Madeline contacted you.
Yeah, it was so I stepped away. So
Yeah,
let me back up.
rewind
Let me
it.
back
Yeah,
up.
rewind it.
So I was writing this blog, and I talked about that on the episode where we talk about cuddle. I was writing this like sex and relationship blog, and one day I get an email from Adam, and he's like, "Hey, I see you have a blog. You know how to write. Could you answer some emails for us?" And I was like, "That's an interesting qualification." And so yeah, I just started answering a few emails here and there. They just needed extra. They had somebody, I can't remember his name, was doing a lot of the back end, like
Was it
putting.
Chris?
Chris came later. I can't think of who it was, but he was handling like putting new people on the website and handling the website stuff. But they needed somebody doing a little bit of customer service, responding to like, hey, what do I got to do to get trained? And back then, Madeline would screen every person before they could go through training.
Mm-hmm.
So that turned into that was like September of 2016, and eventually that it starts with a G. I feel like the person that was doing the website stuff stepped down, and so it became a question of what could I fill in for.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, I still didn't have like a paying career other than like an occasional cuddle that's not going to pay the bills. Um, I really wanted to financially be independent from my ex-husband. Like I mean, I was getting some alimony. Of course, I was getting child support, but I really didn't want him to have financial, I don't want to say control, but I wanted to feel very independent from him. This gave me a place to start working, like not just as a practitioner. What I realized, I hadn't held a regular job where I worked for someone else since 1996 when I worked at the bank,
Mm.
right? So this gave me an opportunity to put all of my administrative skills to work. I'd been running this business with my ex-husband and all these things. Um, but I also got to hear that I could do a good job.
Mm.
That was something I did not get to hear from my ex-husband, right? Adam quickly learned that my love language was emojis, and he could just send me a text with a bunch of loving emojis and I would melt. Um, I got so much time with both of them, and I got kind of reparenting through them.
Mm.
I got to listen to them argue and have conflict and not destroy each other. It was a brand new experience that it was like mom and dad aren't taking the knives out and like literally trying to cut each other with their words. That was powerful for me.
Mm.
Um, I learned so much because I had that extra time with them that I cannot put a monetary value to. Um, but I did become the operations manager um, for, I think, from like basically 2016 till the summer of 2020. I stepped down. I wanted to build my private practice. I was also starting to do more surrogate partner work, which I felt like was a muddy, confusing thing for our industry, especially as such a face of Cuddlist at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like I didn't give myself permission to really be out about that work until I had stepped away. So I never left membership. I've always consistently been in membership, but I did step back from leadership. And then I think it was the beginning of 2023. I think John reached out to me about coming back to the advisory board if I would be interested. And I checked in with myself because I kept saying, like, I didn't talk to Madeline or Adam during that time. I kept waiting for it to feel like a yes in my system, something that we hammer into people. Like, I love Keely's, like, would you say yes and no is not a decision,
A
it's a state
decision.
of being?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when John asked me that, I thought about it, and everything in me was a yes. He made it very inviting, like no pressure. Even if you could just show up on a call a couple times a year, it'd be great. And so that was how I got reconnected with Madeline. And it was that summer that she asked me if I would be interested in replacing her as the director of training.
We were trying to to give you the back end of that. We were trying to
Yeah.
find someone because we knew she wanted to transition out at that point, and we had to have someone come in. And she floated your name immediately. And my and John's response was both, we don't feel comfortable asking for this because we heard Michelle's no to being in such an operations role, and we just got her back. I don't want to push the envelope. We were both like, I don't feel comfortable because we were scared that we were going to then feel like we were asking too much, and it's like we were worried on the other end of it. It would be like, well, give an inch, they take a mile. Like that, though, that was our like, oh, we desperately wanted to keep you in any capacity that we could have you, and didn't want to overextend. And
Yeah.
Michelle's like, I hear you, but I'm gonna ask anyway. And we're like, definitely. We like,
Yeah.
it's not that we don't want this person there. We really do. We want her so badly that we are like, we're gonna use kid gloves. And I'm so glad that she
Yeah.
was like, I'm gonna ask.
And even that, I was like, I can do it for a while.
Right.
Right. And then it
Was
was
it
like,
gonna
well, we
be
kind of need a
constantly?
little bit longer commitment than just a little, like a couple months. Right. So my
Mm-hmm.
answer to that was like, okay, I can do it, but I'm going to put a boundary for how many hours I'm going to commit to this. Because again, it was very important that I keep building my private practice.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to do that, I knew I needed, because I'm the person that's like, I don't like to go to bed with a to-do list that isn't complete, like all
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah.
And so I put a limit on the hours and I stuck to that. I really stuck to that. And then it became a question of like, I think we started talking sometime last year about potentially me buying into the company.
Mm-hmm.
and basically buying Madeline's portion so she could completely retire and be done.
Mhm.
And yeah, and I wrote a really heartfelt letter to her to see if she would sell if I was the person buying the that portion.
Mhm.
And she did.
Mhm.
And it was talk about all of my worlds coming together in what felt like the most synergistic way. Because I was also at the that so 20 so I bought it at the beginning of 2025. These conversations started happening in 2024.
2024.
I was director
No,
of
these
training
conversations,
2023.
and then you bought it 2024, not 2025.
No, beginning of this year.
That
January
can't
1st.
be.
No, we were talking about at the end of the year, but the
Okay.
paperwork
Okay.
finalized January 1st.
What is time? Go ahead.
I know. So what's interesting about the work that we do is it's constantly this evolution of ourselves.
Hmm.
And I was really coming to a place where I didn't enjoy the sexual aspect of my work as a surrogate partner.
Right.
So at the beginning of 2024, I gave myself the mandate to stop self abandoning in that I wasn't going to be valued for my sex and my work. I'd done that work privately in my personal life. And I had this moment where I went, shit, I'm I'm experiencing it again in my professional life. So I gave myself a mandate for 2024 to take sex out of my work as a surrogate partner, which was super scary. It's not the traditional method of the work. Um, but I was really feeling into it. I was exploring my own identity as being asexual.
Hmm.
There was just a lot of stuff happening. And so I was even more aligned with what is the power of this platonic container that we work in, and
Hmm.
how can I utilize that still in surrogate partner world, right? And eventually I came to the decision that calling myself a surrogate partner was not actually very helpful for me.
Hmm.
The industry wasn't as supportive as I would need them to be to make that work. Traditionally it was just always going to be tied to sex,
Mm.
and so I still do that work, right? But to be brought in as an owner, to have all these things come together, everything in my life was just making so much sense and was so in the forward trajectory of exactly where I wanted to be and go.
Hmm.
And I think back to 2015 where I thought it was just a stopover while I figured out what I really wanted to do. And it's this.
Hmm. I love that being able to step into this role means that so my private practice feels really good. It feels really solid. And I don't want to grow it too much bigger
Mm-hmm.
because then for my capacity, I don't think I'll have as much to give to each of my individual clients. I think I'll start feeling really run down.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get to that place. I don't want to work myself so much that I stop loving it. And I love it right now. And so I still wanted to grow as a person and still wanted to grow into another phase of my life and offer more things. And so I know, and I was starting to do more mentorship as opposed to just my individual client work. And this is such a great way to offer mentorship and education and share all of that really kind of hard fought knowledge of trial and error in an industry that was building. And so there were no resources really because it just is too new for that. I can now create the thing that I wish I'd had to support me in the beginning. I can now create the kind of education that would have made a difference and that I know I can contribute to now for other people to do this and make it so much easier and more sustainable because I know for both of us with how much it's impacted our lives. I'll speak for myself here and you can see if this resonates, but the concepts, the core I, no, that's not even the right way to say it. The fundamental way of being that this work teaches. It's a way of being in the world I feel is like the solution to the shit in the world. I want the world to be the way it feels when I'm interacting with people with these same skill sets, same
Mm-hmm.
consent and boundaries, communication tools, because that feels so affirming, that feels so connected, that feels so healthy, that feels so fulfilling, that feels so good. I know that the world can benefit from it. And so any way I can make this more accessible to people, I can't be the person doing this for everybody in the world. That's not possible. And so I have to make more people doing this in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mentioned this on another episode. I think it was on an episode, maybe it was somewhere else. Being a co-owner of
Mm.
Cuddlist is like stewarding that um
At the beginning of this, you said that. I loved it. Yeah.
stewarding of this movement.
Mm-hmm.
It is a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
There's no place that I'm not saying thank you for taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, I don't look at someone's no as something I'm not getting now.
Mm-hmm.
I look
I
at
don't feel
someone's no,
rejected.
I immediately feel a sense of trust now. When I hear someone's no, I'm like, thank you, because now I can trust your yes.
I'm closer to them.
Mm-hmm. I have such deeper intimacy with everyone around me, especially with myself.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm.
that mandate to stop self-abandoning took lots of years of this work to get to.
Mm-hmm.
It did. And oh, there are no words. There's no way to put a monetary value on what I got by showing up in Chicago on December 1st, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Same with that first cuddle party for me. Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man,
It's
good
so
stuff.
cool. It's so cool. I can't, I love my life. I love my work. I love my clients. I love my colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
This bubble is amazing that I
Mm-hmm.
get to live in, and I just want the bubble to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm. That's why in the beginning, I don't think I was getting very many clients at all for several years, for a couple of years on the website, due to a lot of different things, but it was also just so new and growing, right? And I always still felt passionate about, I never thought about canceling my membership because to me, I want the clients? Absolutely. I was trying to build my business, but it wasn't about that. It was about this thing that was so what I wanted the world to be. And I knew I was going to support this thing, whether whether I was getting clients or not. I needed more. I Me paying into this meant other people got trained. Me paying into this meant other people got supported. Me paying into this meant this website existed, even if I didn't, and like would collect more people. It always felt so fulfilling, and so even anymore, my hope is that we give paths to people who can have that same kind of, because that felt very part of a community. People joke about it being kind of cult like, but mostly for me it was community,
Yeah.
because I don't know of any cult that says leave whenever you
Please
want to.
take care
Please
of
tell me your
yourself.
no. Yeah, like if I will say thank you if you decide that this is, you are done, you are finished, you would like to leave. I will say thank you and say with open arms, if you ever want to come back, we're right here. But I'm so glad that you are taking care of yourself and doing the thing that feels the truest and most honest and most fulfilling to you. Yes, yay, celebrate. Like, I don't know of any cult that does that, but that's one of the reasons why this community had felt so aligned.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for our future.
Me too. Me too.
I I just see upward awesome things happening
Yeah.
for us as a community, for you and I individually. You
Mm-hmm.
know, one day we'll do our, our professional wedding,
Mm-hmm.
as my work wife.
And it's a perfect time to put this episode out too, because it's our 10-year anniversary. Catalyst is 10 years old in
Yeah.
September. So it's very fun. And thank you to anyone who's listened and is curious about the origin story of what this is. been what this company has been, or this modality for us and how we express it. And as always, um, thank you so much for being here, and big hugs if you want them.
I love you.
Love you too.